A hidden, dusty attic room.
For the very last time.
And it's coming.
Ballet's here. A crazy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Rays.
Ooh, some kind of voice you got there. Sound like the Phantom.
You could call me that.
So you got a name, Phantom?
Call me Evil.
Evil? You bad, honey?
No, just evil.
Well, listen, Mr. Evil, do you have a vote for the top song of the year?
No, just a New Year's resolution. I'm going to commit murder at midnight. I'm going to kill someone you know. Someone close to you.
This is Jared McVeigh from Island of Blood, a.k.a. Whodunit, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, and we hope you had a happy festive period. And I don't know what I said period, but anyway, happy festive time and a good New Year. And of course, as long as you didn't have a New Year's Evil. Now, I think... am I right, Joseph? Is this going out before New Year's Eve or after?
After, Justin. It's going out after.
After, okay. Well, in which case, I hope you survived Christmas and New Year. And of course, if this was 1980 or 1984 or any time in the early 80s, then the likelihood of surviving Christmas and New Year is negligible, about 2 to 1. But this time we've already done Silent Night, Deadly Night. Have we done part 2?
Not yet. Well, we've done half of part 2.
Yeah, we've done part 2 technically.
Okay, yeah, technically.
We haven't done the second half of it though.
No. Okay, well maybe. Have you done number 2, Eric?
Ew.
Earlier today, yeah.
Oh dear, it's going to be one of those shows, isn't it? So anyway, well, maybe we'll do that next time. I know I did. I don't know what's going on anymore. It's too many mince pies.
That's why you did number 2.
Yeah, possibly. Anyway, as you can see, after 9 years, we've matured to we're going to be appearing on one of the really highbrow Blu-ray labels that put stuff out.
Criterion Collection.
Yes, we should be on a Criterion collection soon, I'm sure you can imagine. But yes, we are going to be covering 1980s, and 1980, I should say, New Year's Evil. Now, of course, it's a film. I'll give it that. But Joseph, it was your choice, wasn't it? So, are you looking forward to New Year's Evil? And I would ask you how your Christmas and New Year were, but as we were recording it before, it's all a bit tricky.
Well, my future self just time traveled back and told me that I had a great time for New Year's and Christmas. So basically, I must fulfill the prophecy now. Whether or not I'm looking forward to New Year's Evil, that remains to be seen in the review. But I am picking this because it got asked about quite a lot. So we're finally going to cover it.
Okay, fantastic. And Nathan, I do wonder, well, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on New Year's Evil, because it feels like it could be a Nathan pick. But is your future self, did you have a nice Christmas?
My future self says that my Christmas went by pretty uneventful, but that's what I want. So I'm very satisfied. I plan to watch a lot of Christmassy stuff, both of the horror and non-horror persuasions. Mm-hmm. If persuasion's the right word to use there. I don't know if it is or not.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Called our podcast Milk-a-Toast because I thought that was a really funny, or not funny, but fancy word. And then I found out that it's not a complimentive word. So I retracted my statement.
You're very milk-toast, Nathan.
Okay, well, Erik, did Santa empty his sack for you this year?
Oh, I can only wish. Yes, he did. And it was full of wonderful gifts because I've been so good all year. I got a trampoline, I got a PlayStation, I got a new bike, I got a new telly, got a surprise, I got a selection box.
Oh, you're a very lucky boy.
Yep.
I'm glad to hear it. So
I have actually opened some presents already, so I do know what I got.
Do you know we're not giving presents at all this year? It's like Scrooge's
Makes
house.
sense. Well, we haven't decorated the apartment this year, so.
Well, I have actually got a little Christmas tree up, so we're not being completely bar humbug. But
I'm watching a huge marathon of Christmas stuff, as I do every year. So that's going to be fun.
Funnily enough,
horror or mixture?
Mixture.
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, we have as well.
Technically, not very much horror at all because I watch that so much throughout the year. This is more my time to watch dumb action movies and comedies. So.
Okay, well, let's talk about what we've been watching recently. And Joseph, do you want to go first?
Sure. The only thing I've watched this week was a Netflix documentary called Don't Fuck with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer. That's the actual title, although they use 2 asterisks on the word fuck, obviously for obvious reasons. But what's interesting about Don't Fuck with Cats is that it manages to take an extraordinarily grim piece of subject matter, in this case, the real-life torture and murder of animals and then eventually human life. And it somehow turns it into this kind of this lean, mean, popcorn-munching documentary machine. And it's both gripping and entertaining while it still doesn't forget that it's got a very harrowing heart at the center of it all. It thankfully glosses over the acts of violence on a visual level, though we're kind of treated to more than one graphic retelling of events through, spoken word. The movie isn't so much concerned with telling us why these events took place or, what caused the murderer to engage in such behavior. Rather, its primary focus is this kind of this underground investigative angle that was done by these online, these sleuths on Facebook, who were, understandably outraged that this guy basically heinously tortured and killed kittens and filmed it and put it on, websites. So, they rightfully wanted to find this guy. And so the documentary kind of, follows them as they piece together clues, from the video clips, like stuff in his room, like vacuum cleaners or, packs of cigarettes. And they use this to determine where he's at in the world. And it's very fascinating. I mean, yeah, the film is grim and disturbing. And, as I said, this really did happen. But it's fascinating and very riveting. And I'd actually never heard of this case until this documentary came out. So the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking, did this really happen? And I didn't want to spoil myself, so I didn't Google it until after it was over. And I Googled it, and yeah, this actually happened. And it's so bizarre. I think if it has a downside, I thought a few of the key details, they're kind of glossed over. Like I'm going to try to avoid spoilers here, but there's a moment with a python and you see a set of hands. Now that won't make any sense as I'm describing this to you, but once you see the film, you'll wonder you'll know what I'm talking about. I think the film moves so quickly maybe that they gloss over things like that I would have maybe liked to spend a little more time on, but still overall, like I said, despite the subject matter, I thought this was really good stuff. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I mean, have you guys watched this yet?
Yes, I have.
I have.
No.
Oh, Justin, you watched it too?
I did, yeah. It's on Netflix here as well.
So angry. It doesn't even show the videos, but I can't handle the real life horror. I prefer my horror fiction. But yeah, it's very difficult, I guess, to watch and I guess know what all happened. The actual, cat killer, and I'm not going to spoil anything further than that, but he is one of the biggest narcissists I think I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, oh my God, talk about vain.
He was when you watch this unfold and they kind of piece together what was going on in his mind and how he set this up. I'm not commending the guy, but he was very brilliant in his maneuverability, I'll say.
But if you think about when he's ultimately discovered, in the big, ultimate scene, he was discovered for being stupid. It's just interesting because he pulls so many brilliant moves, but he does stupid things as well, which
because of his narcissism. Yeah,
it just leads to his stupid mistakes. But in any case, it's very compelling documentary, but I've never watched that again. One time was enough, but it was very good. So
yeah, I thought it was excellent. I mean, I didn't know of the case because Luke Magnotta, I think was his name. He was they thought he might be in the UK. So when he eventually turned up in Paris, because they knew he'd flown to Paris, and they thought he might have come to the UK. So I think there was some news at the time about it, and so I do remember bits and pieces about it. But yeah, it was very well done. But sort of ultimately, I mean, it was a kind of it was interesting. I mean, I suppose a kind of like real life things, but seeing like his mother being so still believing that he was being framed. And
she's in complete denial.
Yeah, but also that thing, and I would say I won't spoil it, but that scene with the hands, and you're thinking, well, why wasn't that mentioned by anyone else in the whole documentary? It was, yeah.
Well, I think Nathan sent a message offline. I think he's right. I think it's probably just the handler, but the way they glossed over it, it kind of seems a little confusing, maybe.
But yeah, I always felt like that was the snake handler, because that was only in that one video.
Yeah, very possibly. But yeah, it was kind of it was very interesting the way it was put together, and very sort of well done. And it was a real sort of like, for want of a better term, I mean, the horrific. The crimes were horrific, but it was kind of hard. You know, it was good to see about people coming together to try and unmask these people do these terrible things on the internet under the kind of cloak of anonymity. And just shows that people who abuse animals and people, can't hide forever. So that was a kind of positive message coming out of it, I kind of guess. But yeah. So but now we've all bummed ourselves out. So was that everything, Joseph?
Yeah, and like I said, I think despite the subject matter, that this movie is kind of as upbeat as it can be, as considering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I highly recommend. I don't think I could ever watch it again, but yeah, it is definitely worth at least one watch.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Erik. How about you?
Well, the only thing I watched this week is non-horror. It's a Blu-ray I got as a Christmas gift. I've already opened them, which is Waterworld, the Kevin Costner movie. Arrow brought it out on Blu-ray. And it has the Ulysses cut of the movie on it, which is just shy of 3 hours long. And I'm sorry to say, I like it. So there we go. I remember seeing it in the cinema back in 1995 and thinking, yeah, that's a half-decent movie. I don't understand why it's getting so much negative press. And rewatching it again for the first time in 24 years, I stand by my opinion. I thought it was pretty darn entertaining.
Every time I hear Waterworld, I think of that bit in The Simpsons where Milhouse is playing Waterworld, the arcade game, and he puts in like 40 quarters, and then the character moves like 2 feet, and it's like, game over, please deposit 40 quarters. He's like, oh, what a rip. And then he puts in 40 more quarters.
Very good.
I've never seen it. Is it kind of...
It's Mad Maxy. It's very it's tonally very similar to Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Right.
So it's basically just a post-apocalyptic world that's just flooded, and they're seeking dry land, and it's all bandits on the sea, and they're all wearing rags and that type of thing. And it's kind of has a cyberpunk aesthetic to it that was all the rage in the 90s. So it's probably a bit dated now, that idea. But yeah, I mean, I found it entertaining. Like for a film to be almost 3 hours long and to hold my attention is kind of unique. So it must be doing something right.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you. Is there anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. What about you, Nathan?
That documentary about the cats was the only thing that I've been able to watch recently.
Oh, you sound so sad.
Well, it's just been busy. Like, we were out of town this past weekend to our to my in-laws, so I mean, just haven't had a lot of time lately. And the weeks leading up to Christmas for my job are super busy. I've been working days and nights. So
me too. Ditto.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully have lots of time in the future when you watch. Hold on, how am I going to put this? When you would have had lots of time over Christmas to watch movies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, talking of Christmas movies, I caught up with a film which I'd heard about quite a lot over the years, and I think it was released. It's a French film from 1989, which I think the original title was 36.15 Code Pierre Noël. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but essentially...
Dial Code Santa Claus.
That's the one, or Deadly Games, or Game Over. It's got lots of different titles. And funnily enough, we'd watched Home Alone and Home Alone 2, and that's just the saying when you were saying, Joseph, about watching other kind of Christmassy movies. So we've been watching a few sort of non-horror and horror kind of Christmassy movies, and Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2. And I was surprised actually how I didn't realise with Home Alone 2 how much of a zero carbon copy. You know, people always say about slasher movie sequels, they're just Xerox carbon copies of the original, and Home Alone 2 was exactly that. But what I didn't know was that, although I think I read bits and pieces about it, but I didn't know to the extent was how much this French film was kind of the blueprint for Home Alone, and it was made the year before. And if you don't know the plot, I mean, the plot essentially is this little boy, his mother runs a big toy company, and he's home alone, literally, with, apart from with his elderly grandfather. And a Santa Claus who's hired by his mother gets fired by his mother on Christmas Eve, and finds her address, and then goes to her house and starts killing the staff and the little boy, who is kind of dresses up as Rambo basically, and has all these traps and booby traps around the house. Has this kind of like cat and mouse game with trying to protect his grandfather, and alternately fleeing from and then trying to take down this psycho Santa. So has any of you guys seen it?
I have. I really like it. It's a very dark kind of almost like a horror take on the Home Alone plot structure, obviously before Home Alone. But I really enjoyed it.
I did read, somebody said when I posted a clip on the Hysteria Lives Facebook group that the director had tried to sue John Hughes. So whether or not it was just a coincidence, but it's they're very similar. I mean, obviously in a lot of ways they're very different, but that whole concept of fighting off this kind of home invasion through the use of booby traps, using a young boy fighting off these home invaders is identical. So, but yeah, that's definitely worth a watch. I think it's either come out or it's coming out on Blu-ray in the United States. So. Another couple of quick ones I'll rattle through. A newer film was a film called One Must Fall, which was made last year, 2018, or if you listen to this, 2 years ago. I thought it sounded really interesting, in so much it was set in the early 80s. And it was about a woman who gets made redundant for her job, and she has to take a job cleaning up crime scenes. And she gets hired by a company who goes to clear up this crime scene in this warehouse where this killer has tortured and murdered a number of people. So there's kind of bodies everywhere. And the police have left after the investigation, so she goes in with the group to clear away the crime scene, but the killer essentially is still there and locks them in and bumps them off one by one. Now, I had kind of high hopes for this movie because it was set in early 1980s, and in fact, actually, the attention to detail on the early 1980s looked pretty good to start off with. Not as good as, say, something like House of the Devil, which I think they really nailed that look. But it had that. She was dressed in those kind of dowdy early 1980s office wear, and her hair was kind of 80s dowdy. It wasn't sort of really over the top where everyone's wearing leg warmers and Dee boppers. But as the film goes on, it kind of falls away, and the attention to detail seems to drop off. And the killer, unfortunately, is more of a kind of a hostile style killer rather than an early 80s slasher movie villain. But it might be worth a look if you're not too demanding. So, any of you guys heard of it or seen it?
Never heard of it.
No.
Well, one to possibly look out for, but maybe not. And the last one was one I thought would be. I almost thought Erik was going to pick for his next Patreon, but it was a film that I'd seen advertised for years and years and years. I've never watched it, but I eventually got around to watching Monster Dog with Alice Cooper from 1984. which has Alice Cooper being this rock star, a sort of typecast, who goes back to his childhood home, which looks very much like a cross between Romania and Italy. And because the film was made by, I think, Claudio Fragrasso, so it's just filled. Everyone in the movie is Italian, very easily identifiable as an Italian in the movie, apart from Alice Cooper, and it's dubbed quite hilariously into English. So, of course, there's essentially it's a story of a rock star goes back to his ancestral home where there's a werewolf, and then he becomes a werewolf, and lots of people fly around in slow motion, and bits of blood and chiffon and latex fly around as well, and lots of big hair. So that was the movie in a nutshell, really. So, Erik, have you seen that?
I have, but it's a long time ago, and as it's a Claudio Fragrasso one, I'd love to revisit it now that I'm a connoisseur of his oeuvre. Yeah, because it was
with the emphasis on the sewer.
Connoisseur, yeah. Yeah, because it's been about 25 years, and I don't think I appreciated it back then. Is it is it a laugh fest like Troll 2, or
it is pretty funny? It's not up there with Troll 2, but there's some pretty funny bits in it, and there's some really bad dubbing, and some really heartfelt sort of discussions about things with people who can't act. So in that way, I think you'd probably enjoy it. Yeah. So. Yeah. What about you, Nathan and Joseph? Are you Monster Dog?
I have seen it. I used to have the Wizard Video big box of this. I haven't seen it in a long, long time, but I remember it being quite hilarious.
Yes. Nathan, I imagine it would be up your alley.
I don't remember. I know I used to own it, but I cannot remember if I've ever seen it. If I have, I don't remember it. So I need to watch it.
Yes, you do. I think you'd like it. So, okay, well, that was our recently seen, and we know what's coming next. It is the feature of the week. So after the trailer, Joseph, you'll bring us back in. So here is a trailer for New Year's Evil.
Tell me, will it be sweet New Year's Eve, or do I feel a New Year's Evil?
Every New Year's Eve, the caller came out. One terrifying night of unspeakable evil. New Year's Evil.
Rated R. Now playing at a theater or drive-in near you.
A different kind of New Year's resolution, a celebration of the macabre, a nationally televised New Year's Eve punk rock party being celebrated in 4 time zones sets an eerie stage for murders at midnight in this thriller with a twist ending. Okay, that was from the old Paragon VHS release of New Year's Evil, and the last time I'd watched this film was on that very same tape. I rented it from an old mom and pop video store around 95 or 96, probably more like 97 when the whole Scream fad was calling attention to these old films, but I digress. I recall thinking it was quite bland. It was poorly shot, and that was the last time I had seen the film until this week. And watching the Blu-ray release was something of a revelation, if I'm honest. I found that it actually was well shot, and I certainly didn't get bland from it either. As I may be in a minority here, but I got a bit of a Pieces vibe in places, with some outlandish moments involving, both character and circumstance. These moments that are, quite frankly, I guess, really bizarre. The first is this detective character assigned to monitor the calls. And he feels like he wandered right in from the set of Pieces. I mean, he's such a useless character. I mean, his only function is to victim blame. And then he makes like these sweeping generalizations about this new wave crowd. He's like, there's so much evil out there. And these guys are just out there dancing and having a good time. And boy, this film really tries to be somewhat classy, but that new wave stuff, having just more from the discotheque and not yet becoming that corporate cocaine rock of the mid 80s. I mean, it just permeates this film, and it gives it that really exhilarating atmosphere that I love. Especially, me being someone who loves to look back on these times and these places and just kind of, look at it with a nostalgic eye. But, like I said, that Pieces vibe, it really lingers, especially there's one scene where the killer killer sends this woman into the liquor store to grab some champagne. And then you get this really hilariously awful editing and acting moment from the clerk. I mean, he gives this sort of, here's your change line. And then the woman, she says her thanks. And just before she leaves, the camera very awkwardly cuts back to the clerk, and he's just kind of like staring off to the right a little. And then he finally says, "Oh, and you have a happy new year." And it feels so out of place. And there's a lot of scenes that are just like that. It feels like a Nail Gun Massacre or a Pieces kind of got wandered into the making of this film. I found, like I said, the whole movie's caked in moments like that. There's a bizarre moment where the killer, he angers some bikers, and then they wander into like a movie theater, and they're showing the Red Queen kill 7 times under the Blood Feast title. More on that later in background. I think Roz Kelly and her magnificent hair, I think it's great. I think she's great as this kind of flustered, but she's a determined career woman. She's the central figure in this haphazard madness. And the actor playing the killer, I'll avoid the spoilers for now, and maybe let one of you guys talk about that frankly ridiculous twist. I thought the guy playing the killer, is it Kip Niven, I think his name was? I thought he was acted very well. I like how he kind of changes demeanor every time he goes to kill someone. Like he pretends to be a certain type of person. I thought that was really well done. I think my only real problem with New Year's Evil, if I'm honest, is that it doesn't really have much of a score to itself outside of kind of the new wave stuff, or various background bits and pieces of music. More on that, I think the sound mixing is also kind of weird in that, like, there'll be scenes of people dancing to some of the music, and you can hear like the scuffling of their feet alongside the music, but the scuffling is like much louder than the music track, and it's very odd and distracting. But I think that maybe kind of adds, to the charm of this already goofy film. So yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I think that's a minor gaffe. But overall, I really, really enjoyed New Year's Evil this time around. No pun intended. And I do have some more to say about it, but I would be interested to hear what you think, Erik.
Yes, well, I really enjoyed New Year's Evil this time around as well. Now, the criticism often leveled at this film is that it's just really, really boring. And I can kind of see where that criticism is coming from, because I kind of felt that way when I watched it initially. But there's definitely enough in here to keep me entertained. I mean, for starters, there's no prizes for guessing that I love all that early 80s new wave band stuff. And I love Blaze. I love her fashions. I love her hair and her hip new wave dialogue. Okay, babies, it's time to slam down and get even. It's time to spin out and boil your hair. I mean, none of that makes sense. I'd love to know if that actually is just something that the scriptwriters came up with, or if that was actually lingo from the time. I love her makeup as well. She looks like she's been shot in the face with Homer Simpson's makeup gun. It's utterly hilarious.
Set the whore.
Yeah, well, she does. It looks like.
Yeah.
And also, the film is kind of showing its age in one way, because the hottest VJ in town is in her mid-40s, or it may possibly older. I don't know. Nowadays, you're kind of over the hill if you're 21 in that industry. And I'm always intrigued by that US definition of new wave, because it differs to kind of what we had over here in the States. It seems that sort of new wave means kind of a fairly contemporary rock sound, but with the fans wearing punk clothes and new romantic makeup. It's a really bizarre mishmash of genres, but I love it. And it's, we see it in other films, like in Graduation Day, where Felony come on and perform gangster rock, which for me is one of the highlights of that film. I love it. I think the audience who attend the concert or the TV show as well are really fun, because they're painted as these kind of tough characters, but there's also this real sense of camp about them because they're caked in makeup. And I particularly love that scene where one of them, who looks, I suppose, like a punk, and he goes up to the cop and pulls out what looks like a switchblade, hits the switch, and turns out to be a comb. It's just so camp. And I love the Hollywood Hotline, which is the TV show within the movie. And I like the fact that the people are, phone calls are put through to air without any screening whatsoever. It's just an accident waiting to happen. Just ask the British pop phenomenon 5 Star. Justin, you probably remember that incident. Yes. They did a live phone in. They were kind of like the Jackson 5 of the UK, and they were doing a live phone in on a kids' TV show, and somebody rang on to tell them that they were fucking crap live on air. So you'll see that I'm focusing a lot on the fashions and the music because possibly the thriller and horror elements in New Year's Evil are not quite as strong. As you know, not that pushed on slasher movies where we know the killer from the start and we see his face and we know who he is. So, like in films like Maniac, Don't Answer the Phone, and Christmas Evil, although I like all three of those films to a degree, I much prefer mysterious killers in, spooky costumes like in My Bloody Valentine or The Prowler or that type of thing. So it's a kind of a shame that I would love to see a kind of Friday the 13th style slasher or a My Bloody Valentine style slasher set against that 80s new wave music backdrop. I think that for me would be heaven. Having said that, there's some decent slasher scenes in there. He dons various personas and disguises to get from A to B to C. He seduces a nurse, the most unprofessional nurse I've ever seen. First of all, she smokes in the hospital, and then she's very easily convinced to neglect her duties to have some nookie and champagne with this guy she's just met. The scenes in the elevator towards the end are quite well done, I think. So I think the film is quite underrated. I mean, I used to regard it as very much a grade D movie in the slasher pantheon, but I've upped my opinion. I have the Blu-ray from Scream Factory, and it looks great. So I mean, as you were saying, Joseph, I just love looking back on that era, and if nothing else, the film has all those new wave bands, and I like the music and the look of all that type of stuff. So even if the horror stuff wasn't working for me, there's still something I can get from the movie. I think it's a decent-ish movie these days.
Yeah, like you, I think mine was, I would say it was a D- movie, but I've upgraded to like a C+ or even a B- now. But
I agree.
Yeah, Nathan, what are your thoughts on New Year's Evil?
I think New Year's Evil is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Like you guys, I love Blaze. I actually feel like there's a lot of people that's unfair to her character, like the fans that watch the movie, because I've read so many reviews where they talk about how she's an unsympathetic heroine, but I liked her. I don't know. I mean, I know her son's going through some stuff, but I'm like, this was a huge night for her. It's hectic. It's busy. Like, she doesn't have time for much. I mean, she did tell him we'll go out to dinner later and we can talk, but like, put your crazy on the back burner for one night. Besides, they got to sing Dumb Blondes and those other crazy songs this new era band is singing, which I actually love all the songs. I think they're fun. New Year's Evil! I did think it was interesting that the killer decided to hide in a dumpster, waiting on a victim to just, find her way over there. I mean, to me, if I found my friend's high heel on the ground and the car that she was in is gone now, then I'm assuming something crazy's up. I'm going to go back into the shopkeep who says, have a happy new year, like 20 minutes later. I'm going to go back into him and ask him to call the cops. And, that could have put a flaw in the killer's plan. Luckily for him, she decided to go check out the dumpster.
It's probably more practical than hiding inside a snowman.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's just easier, I'd say. But yeah, I think that it's a great, fun movie. I can't really say anything bad about it. I will say, though, that part of me kind of wonders what it would have been like to see some of the crazy new age kids getting stalked at the event that they're at. That would have been a really fun movie, too. So I can't help but wonder what could have been.
I think Terror on Tour sort of does what you're looking for, Nathan.
Sort of, yeah, but
on a more
it focuses so much more on the band.
Yeah,
I think you're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
You're giving them the benefit of the doubt by calling them new age kids because they look like they're about 35.
Yeah.
I think you mean new wave kids.
What did I call them?
No, Nathan. He called them new age. I think he means new wave.
Oh, I think I called them new age as well. Sorry.
Or Nathan did, I think. I don't know.
Maybe we both did.
New wave, yeah.
But is that your opinion, Nathan?
That is my opinion.
All right. Well, J.U. Stinkerswell, what do you think of New Year's Evil?
Oh, Joseph. Well, New Year's Evil, I've never been a fan, I must be honest, of this movie. And I enjoyed it more this time, partly because it looks really good on the Blu-ray. It's actually it's a well-made film in so much it looks good. I don't think it's a good film. There are bits in it I find difficult to watch. I find there's one of the things they picked up with the punk stuff, although I agree with Erik. I mean, it's not really punk. It's just lots of stage school kids trying to look tough, a bit like Class of 1984 or something like that. They just kind of sneer and wear black lipstick and purple hair, but they, it's not very convincing. And also, it does that whole thing is like the difference between kind of the new wave or post-punk in the UK and Ireland as opposed to what was going on in the States. Although I think there were some kind of cool post-punk American bands, like the Cramps and Christian Death. And,
even Blondie, I'd cast as probably in a post-punk band. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was almost like a parody of that. It was like what New Wave would have looked like to a 60-year-old director or something. And I, very much, agree with like Blaze or Ros Kelly. Her makeup was like, the sort of a makeup gun. It had hit her at full pelt. She was 38 when she made this, but even then, it was still kind of it stood out that she was. It would have been better to have somebody who was younger in that role, because it didn't. It was quite jarring. I mean, I thought she came across incredibly unsympathetic, if I'm honest, because not only is her son suicidal, homicidal, and terminally depressed. It turns out her husband wants to kill her as well. So she must be doing something wrong, whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah, their reasoning is that she's trying to be a career woman, so they're blaming their problems on her with murder.
Well, I'm not justifying.
It's very not Me Too.
Yeah. Yes, I'm not justifying the Kip Niven as the husband, which I think is one of the good. There's a great scene. It was a great scene, but a good reveal later on where this is kind of ironically the film was kind of dismissed as a rip-off of Halloween, which of course most slasher movies were. But one of the things that was pointed out at the time was that in Halloween you have, or most slasher movies, not most, but a lot of slasher movies, if you have a mask, you have the killer wearing the mask throughout and then to be unmasked at the end, whereas in this film you actually have the killer is unmasked throughout, unless you kind of stick-on moustache is a fiendish disguise, and then puts on quite the creepy mask at the end before he pulls it off, and you think Blaze is going to go, oh my god, the killer's here, but it actually turns out to be her husband, and all his kind of weirdly misogynistic kind of ranting at her. I mean, it's all very odd, and I don't think it came from any great place of intellect or trying to make a message. It was all over the place, really. There were bits in it I thought, well, they're trying to make. There were some slyly funny bits in this, which I picked up more on this time, especially when Kip Niven picks up the two women from the disco after they fall for his massive moustache, and he's in the car with them, and there's the woman. I think I wrote her name down as Louisa Moritz as Sally, who's this kind of real stereotypical kind of airhead, and she's going on about saying he's stuck in the car, this killer stuck in the car, can't wait to kill her, but she's banging on about haikus and transcendental meditation, and then saying her friend who sat next to her saying she had nervous diarrhea. And the killer is rolling his eyes and going, oh my god, but so you have this kind of playfulness, and then he kills her by smothering her with this well, not smothering her, but basically killing of a bag of grass.
Asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation, that's the word I was going for. Which I kind of felt like it was such a bubbly character. It felt quite mean-spirited, and there's this kind of weird sort of campiness through it. And it reminded me, actually, it's the weird tone that was a bit all over the place of Don't Answer the Phone, which we covered recently, which had these kind of slapstick elements and these kind of quite sleazy, kind of disturbing elements as well. It's not to say it's a bad thing. I mean, this is a film made in 1980 or 79, whenever it was made. So it's just observations, really. A couple of other things are sort of the observations. Talking about the nurse, I would say that she probably went to the same nursing school as the nurse in Halloween 2, who went into jacuzzi. And also, you was talking about 5 Star. There was, I don't know if you remember, Matt Bianco. Also, there was a phone in where it was another children's show, and there was a terrible cod jazz pretty boy 3-piece called Matt Bianco, who
hey, I like Matt Bianco.
Well, yes, they were terrible band, and someone phoned in and says, "Why are you such a bunch of wankers?" live on air, and then they had to say, "Sorry, children." That was that man was very angry and very naughty, but it also made me laugh how you had this call in Hollywood hotline where you had this like 5 women sat like a telephone all answering the phones, and the killer got through every single time, didn't he? I know if you've ever tried to phone any kind of TV thing or anything to get through, it's not, you can't just get through.
No,
like that.
I learned the hard way.
The hard way. So, I love the thing for me. My favourite bit of it actually was that bit with the drama school dropouts pretending to be punks driving along the road, all flipping the V and pretending to be bad punks to fellow motorists. To that song, which I think it just kind of really encapsulate that kind of fun early 80s kind of slightly anarchic feel. I also love the really off their heads punk couple in the lift who accidentally get caught up in the shenanigans at the end of the movie and going up and down. They start off looking like they've overdosed on heroin, and by the end of it they look like they've taken speed because they're screaming and jumping up and down. So I thought that was quite fun. So what else? The other thing I thought it was interesting that it's one of the rare slasher movies where you actually have a victim get away from the killer as well, with the girl at the drive-in who the killer drives off. Quite why he's dressed as a priest is never quite explained, because it doesn't actually benefit him in any ways, really, does it? Apart from he gets a lift at the end by someone, and he drives off, and this girl manages to escape the car and runs into this kind of sports ground and hides under the bleachers, and the police get there and he gets away, but she also gets away, which is quite unusual for a slasher movie this time. So that was good. I thought Kip Niven as the killer was really good in his role. I thought it was quite nuanced performance. And there's not many times you've had killer in an early 80s slasher movie who spends most of his time rolling his eyes at stupid people. So I did appreciate that. But overall, it's not much. It's still, I saw it more as you were mentioning, Joseph, about it having that slight Pieces feel to it or something along those lines. There were bits in it that felt very, very much of the canon, literally the canon of like those films like X-Ray and AK Hospital Massacre, where there is definitely a feeling of the absurd to this, which I enjoyed. But overall, I don't think it's not a good film. It's not a film that I particularly want to go back and watch very often. But I'm glad we're covering it, because it certainly has its place in the roster of early 80s slasher movies. But I'm with Erik. It would have been, a better, for me, a better film possibly. Although I like the gimmick of killing somebody in a different time zone while they're throughout the United States, or every time the clock hit 12 in different parts of the United States. I mean, that's a good gimmick. But it probably would have been a better slasher movie with a masked killer, and that mask was creepy at the end. But as you said, with a discotheque full of new age kids dancing like zombies, being pumped off one by one, then New Wave. Sorry, did I call it New Age? God, I think New Age. New Age. God, can you imagine that?
I'm just going to start calling them the New Romantics.
Can you imagine there'd be a New Age killer going around killing people by stabbing them with joss sticks or something? That would have been good. But
here, listen to some Enya and die.
Yeah, indeed. So overall, I it's not a film that I'm particularly fond of. If I'm going to be the dissenting voice on the podcast on this one, it's not a film I'm particularly fond of, but I appreciate it for what it is. I just wish it had been better.
Ooh. Background info. Anyone have any background info? Nathan?
No, but I will say that when I first saw this movie, I thought that the killer was killing people in each time zone as they struck midnight. So, like,
He must have been traveling very fast.
Well,
Yeah.
I realized as I got older that sounded ridiculously dumb, but like for some reason, that's how I always thought this movie went. And then as I got older, I'm like, no, I think he's in the same town the whole time. He's just killing people in that town.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put it past him to try something like that because the film is pretty boneheaded in that respect. But no, he's in the one town.
Okay.
Okay.
I've
Justin,
got some.
Eric.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, I've got some. But Eric, do you want to?
Yes, I've just got a small bit here.
That's why I hear.
Yeah. I knew. As soon as I said that, that's something that Justin's going to edit out now and use it against me. Yes, it was shot in 18 days in the summer of 1980, possibly around June or July. Emmett Alston is the director, and he went on to direct 9 Deaths of the Ninja, which I think I've seen, but also Demon Warp, which I've definitely seen later in the 1980s. Roz Kelly. Now, she had a run-in with the law in the late 90s. She was arrested for shooting up cars and a neighbor's apartment after a car alarm kept going off in the early hours of the morning and woke her up. So she apparently was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment, but it was reduced to 90 days. She came to prominence in Happy Days. She was playing Fonzie's girlfriend, Pinky Tuscadero, in the opening 3 episodes of one of the later series of Happy Days. But she was mysteriously dropped after those 3 episodes, and the rumor has it that she just never gelled with the cast. And she later on told People magazine that she didn't get on with the people on the set, and so she was dropped. Henry Winkler in particular had issues with her. Doesn't say what they were, but yeah. So that's why her IMDb credits list is so sparse, particularly after New Year's Evil. I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 more credits, and then she disappears. Taff O'Connell, who plays the nurse, who went to the same school as the nurse in Halloween 2. She's also in Galaxy of Terror, where she meets a very sticky end courtesy of she's the one who meets the sticky end courtesy of the giant maggot, I think. She had done a pilot for TV, which was going to be a Happy Days spin-off with Roz Kelly, and she knew the director of New Year's Evil, Emmett Alston, and he asked her to appear as the nurse in the film, and she was the one who recommended Roz Kelly for the role of Blaze. And Kip Niven, he's interviewed on the Scream Factory disc. He says that they had an electronic device for him to alter his voice on the menacing phone calls, but it didn't work. So he just put on the voice himself, and he mimics it in the interview. And it still sounds exactly the same as it did 39 years ago. So they had to just bin the electronic device they'd built and just put on a funny voice. Like this. Quack, 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 quack.
Like a duck.
Like in New York Ripper.
Indeed. Or in Toya Live from Butlins 1980.
Oh, shut up, you. She wasn't playing Butlins in 1980. She was playing big arenas.
Uh-huh.
It's y'all's turn.
It's yours turn. Okay. Well, I've got a few other bits. John Green, who played the cop, was also in the other 2 classics of this year, Don't Answer the Phone and Schizoid. So kind of very kind of similar types of movies. I saw the film started filming in October 1980, but it makes more sense what you were saying because
that's what Kip Niven says on the Blu-ray that they were filming during a Actors Guild strike, and he said it was June 1980, and I googled it, and it was sort of June, July 1980 that strike was on. So
yeah, well, it would make sense because it was released in December 1980, so it would have been a very quick turnaround to be October. I thought for 2 months was an incredibly quick turnaround. It didn't get a release in the UK until 1982. When it was on a double bill with X-Ray, so you can imagine how kind of antiquated it possibly would have looked to UK audiences even by 1982. It was part of Canon's, it's a $50 million financial deal, which was financed from Europe for many of these movies, which included things like Space Vampires, which became Life Force. And the budget was around $2 million, and it was destined for a 1,000-screen release in December 19th, 1980. Whether or not it got that, I don't know, but it obviously was filmed in the same way that My Bloody Valentine was rushed to make screens ahead of Valentine's Day 1981. This was obviously made to cash in on New Year's Eve as the date. as you can imagine, the reviews weren't particularly kind. I've got a couple of snippets here. The Albuquerque Journal in February of 1981 called it, the headline was "Dull News Evil Rips Off Halloween," and goes on to say that things are also not helped by the mediocre acting, constantly boring new wave music score, and some atrocious dialogue. A sample of the police detective's lines: "There's enough evil here to fill Death Valley." And the journalist goes on to also say, and there's enough talent floating around the set of this movie to fill a thimble. So not particularly sort of kind. Another review I saw was, I can't remember where this is from, but it just says that it was released on a double bill with Patrick, the Australian movie, which they praised, but they called this, they said, although it's early in the year, Linda Gross of the Los Angeles Times nominates this as one of the worst films of 1981. It's about an Oedipal psychotic on the lam in Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. The killer telephones the host of a nationally televised New Year's Eve show to say he will brutally kill at the stroke of midnight as it hits each time zone across the country. Ross Kelly plays a selfish TV host, Kip Niven, her neglected husband, and Grant Kramer, her even more neglected son. Gross says the film is punk rockers and new wave bands, loud, scary, dangerous, and evil. And it said the R rating is for gruesome violence, unsuitable for children. Unsurprisingly, the film, Gene Siskel gave it 0 stars out of 4, calling it a hideously ugly motion picture. So I've got some other bits, but I am kind of guessing that I don't want to take all of Joseph's stuff. So I'll pass it over to you, Joseph.
Well, you guys have pretty much taken everything I had, except moreover from that arrest of Roz Kelly in 1998. A couple years later, she violated her probation after allegedly attacking her then boyfriend with a cane. I thought that was interesting. Earlier, I mentioned the scene where they go into the drive-in movie theater and they're playing what seems to be Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. Now, that's not actually Blood Feast. It's The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, which was also released under the name Blood Feast. And
I never realized that.
Yeah, apparently this has caused some confusion throughout the years. But no, that's not the Herschel Gordon Lewis Blood Feast. It's The Red Queen Kills 7 Times from 1972.
I love that movie. I never even twigged it was playing in the movie within New Year's Evil.
Yeah. That is, you said it was released in December of 1980. I think it was December 19th, according to a couple of TV spots that I've seen. But that's pretty much all I have. So,
and may I just say, in Roz Kelly's defense, those car alarms are really annoying.
They are.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being kept up all night? You might have done the same thing.
What if someone had a car alarm? Like if you go and like slap the hood of the car, it starts playing Toya music.
Well,
that would be a dream come true.
It's a mystery why anyone want to steal a car like that.
Absolutely.
Was that a song pun?
Yes, it was a song pun.
That was my of the week.
Yeah.
And now a word from our friends.
So, just destroy it?
That's what Ming said. Don't you ever listen?
Well, there's no arguing with Ming.
Hail Ming. Wait! You see those transmissions on the Visua screen?
Crow? Nightmare on Elm Street?
Chud 2? Black Belt Jones?
Nightbreed?
What's a critter?
Oh, I've seen those things.
Flash? I guess we could wait a while before the destruction.
Yeah, and watch the movies.
And talk about them.
The Hail Ming Power Hour. Disobedience to Ming. For now.
You can find us at Legion Podcast.
You can find us on Facebook.
iTunes.
We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram.
At You know what? Just Google it for yourself.
Just Google it, you bastages.
Everybody dies. Horrible horror reviews for a horrible horror world.
My name is fucking Dave, the new face of horror movie reviews. Check out facebook.com/everybodydieshorribly for more info.
Hey, I'm gonna fuck you, man! Okay.
What's wrong with you? Look at you. You got a boner.
Shut up! Everybody dies.
So, Joseph, do you want to give us some feedback from our dear listeners about what they thought of New Year's Eve? Or do you have a pro and an anti?
I do not have any listeners of the week this year because we're trying something a little different. However, I did poll the electorate, as it were. 84% of our social media presence like New Year's Evil.
Ooh.
The other 16%, they don't appear to like New Year's Evil. But no feedback this week. I'll do better for the next episode. I'm kind of having a wishy-washy week this week, so my apologies.
Okay, right. Well, talking of wishy-washy, I think we know what's coming next, don't we?
You do? Yes.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So, what do you call it when you get really pampered on the 1st of January? A nappy New Year. Pampered. Like happy. Like Happy New Year, but nappy New Year. Pampered.
Well, I'd say a nice diaper. That was pretty fitting.
We're recording this just before Christmas. I think he ruined Christmas.
Justin's sound effects are all over the place today.
Well, I was so shell shocked by that terrible joke, Eric.
It wasn't terrible. Did you understand the joke? Pampers is a popular brand of nappy.
Yes.
You should know you wear them.
Oh, Eric.
Yeah, I went there.
You did, yeah. The only way is up. So, and I do apologise if you can hear this. I had to have a quick break to go and feed the hordes of cats. So it's not me eating biscuits. So
can't hear them.
You can't know. Well, that's good. Well, there goes. My directional mic is working properly then, which is good. So, well, is there anything left to say about New Year's Evil or anything else?
I guess we should probably discuss what we're picking next time.
Yeah.
I don't have any feedback to read out, so people just don't send us feedback anymore.
Well,
actually, they do. They just do it. They just send it to our Facebook page or whatever. They never send it through email, but you can email us. It's thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Indeed. And we always love to hear from you. And I was going to say, if you, obviously it's great to listen to us on the podcatchers, but Joseph has been doing a stellar job on YouTube with, what do they call it? It's when you added value or whatever, you could have multimedia or something, but added
bonus content.
Production value, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, but what he's doing is adding artwork from the films, trailers, various things for the YouTube presentations of the podcast. So the Blood and Black Lace one looked especially good. And also we started doing a kind of exclusive to YouTube, I kind of guess, is little filmed intros by us. If you want to see what we look like, then and be careful.
Hey, why are you laughing?
Then
because
check it out.
People are going to see what I look like tomorrow. I did like a trailer compilation where I introduced it, and oh my god, it took like 900 takes just to get that.
It's really difficult to get your eye line right, I find.
That's the problem. I don't mind talking in front of the camera. I mean, I know I'm hideous and all. I've accepted that. It's just getting the eye line right with the camera and remembering my lines.
Super sexy, and we all want to have sexual intercourse with you.
I will have Wes just film. That might be the easiest for me, having somebody film it. But I was planning on just winging it.
Well, if you've, I
there
think
you go.
There must be some special trick about getting something so you get the eye line right. I imagine if you kind of for Erik, you sort of dangle, I don't know, something, with over the hole, like something. What?
Chunky Kit Kat.
Chunky or something, on the not the hole, but the lens on the. Are you using the? I'm
using a Samsung S10, and I don't know where the lens is because wherever I'm looking, it's always wrong.
Well, if you work out where the lens is and then look at that, That's my tip for the day. But if you want to check it out, we are on there. And also this fine month in January, we are on Patreon. We're covering the top 3 horror movies in 1983 and also our first off-piste choices. So we're going to be, we're going mostly, well, we don't know actually, we kind of mine, and we won't spoil what Erik's choice is, but I would imagine it's fair to say they can fall within the cult movie spectrum. So I'm going to be, well, my choice is Miracle Mile from 1989, the romance, 80s romance come nuclear apocalypse movie. So we had quite a lot of fun talking about that one. And and then Erik's one will be coming up next month. And so we're carrying on off-piste. So everything is moving forward into 2020. So plenty more to come, and including Nathan. What are you going to be coming with, as it were?
Yeah, Nathan gets to celebrate our birthday episode.
I do, and I wanted to go with something dignified, and so I've decided to go with Night of the Demon.
Oh, you mean the 1950s? Yeah, the 1950s classic.
Go with the 80s.
Oh, do you mean the
one with Linnea Quigley?
Oh, I love Linnea Quigley.
Demons with an S. This is just one demon.
Angela's Revenge.
So you're talking about the Sasquatch that looks like Mick Jagger pulls off the penises of bikers. Is it that one?
Yeah,
I hate when that happens.
The one where the dad doesn't care if God kills his daughter.
Yeah.
Yes, the
he
classic.
Recommends it.
The one and only Night of the Demon, the from 1980 as well, isn't it? I think.
Yep.
Let's just go ahead and say probably one of the greatest bad movies you'll ever see.
Exactly, and we're going to have a lot of fun to discussing that. So that's your homework for next time. If you want to play along, is find yourself a copy. Although I don't know, it's probably on YouTube, isn't it? I don't think it's ever had. Has it?
I think it is on YouTube, and it's obviously on some of the Baby Jesus sites. But as far as I know, I don't think it's ever received a proper release of any kind outside of VHS.
Well,
Vipco brought out I'm assuming a dreadful a DVD of it.
Yeah, it's probably just a VHS transfer.
That's exactly probably what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues. And what are we going to be playing out with?
Well, I mean, it's obvious. It's got to be Shadow and New Year's Evil. So.
But of course. Okay. Right. Well, thank you for listening to the Hysteria Continues, and I hope you have a fantastic new year and free of evil. And we will catch you next time as we go hunting Sasquatch.
Watch out for your penis.
Exactly. So say goodbye to good people.
Watch out for your penis.
Bye. Watch out for Erik's penis if you can see it.
Bring a magnifying glass.
You're the horriblest bunch of people ever.
No, Erik does have a very large penis. I've seen it.
Yeah. Have you?
No.
Okay. All right. Well. Okay. Classic. Well, that's that.
Yeah.